Today's sponsor is Loot Crate. For less than $20 a month, Loot Crate gives the geek in you a special treat every month. Loot Crate is a subscription box service with more than $40 worth of geek and gamer and pop culture gear, collectibles, apparel, comics, etc. delivered to your mailbox every month. This month, they're celebrating all the monsters you can fit in your pocket and the ones you need some crazy circle drawing skills to bring to the mortal realm. This month's crate features an exclusive collectible they're told is, quote, the most important object in pretty much the whole universe, end quote, plus awesome items from Blizzard, Kid Robot, and more. You have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive that month's crate, and when the cutoff happens, that's it. It's over. So sad. Too bad. So go to lootcrate.com/kindafunny and enter the code kindafunny to save $3 on your new subscription today. Colin,
Yes.
what's your topic?
I want to talk about Donald Trump.
I know of him.
Donald.
But I don't really have anything to say, per se, about him. I don't have any agenda.
Owner of the Mavericks, Shark Tank. That's all I know of him.
Not Donald Trump. No, not Donald Trump. That's Mark Cuban,
Oh!
who is a supporter, I think, of Donald Trump.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I know, yeah. He said something that was like supportive of him or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
This was some time ago. I don't really have an agenda with this. The reason I brought this up is A, I needed a topic for the show here, GameOverGreggy
That's how it works, yeah.
And B, a lot of people, like literally, I would say at this point, hundreds of people have asked me to talk about Donald Trump. Now, I'm not really going to say anything about him
What do
per
you
se.
think of him? They asked you to talk about him, not us. We're a bunch of idiots.
I'm gonna say this to back it up to the last topic. The beginning of the last topic is that Colin was right. I do have to pee. I'll be right back.
Oh my God.
You're the worst.
You
I
are
saw
really
him
bad.
drop the hand, and I was like, "What? Is he really that passionate?"
I'm
about Donald
kind of
Trump?
worried about you.
Can you go to the doctor, though? You really don't.
No, he doesn't have the beaties.
We have to taste the pee. If it's sweet, then we know.
Kevin.
Is that true? Is pee sweet? If it's...
Saw this on Reddit.
Has to be true.
Yeah. A lot of, it's one of those Reddit stories you want to believe is true. But yeah, this guy started seeing this girl and they were just fooling around or whatever. Like they're not seriously into like dating or anything, but they were just like fuck buddies
And
or
then he
whatever.
peed in her mouth.
No, she was a squirter, and so he thought this was like the hottest thing ever. But he's like, not a male nurse. What was? I don't know. He works in. He's either a doctor or a male nurse. Doesn't matter. And he's like, don't get me wrong. I'm in this field. I know biology. I know what squirting is. I know she's just peeing on me or whatever. But it's still hot to me. And I'm da. And then he said that he started to enjoy the taste of everything that was happening because it was kind of sweet. And he said he snapped awake, like as he was falling asleep. He's like, wait, sweet. Her pee is sweet, and then he ran off and got like whatever, took a blood test. She was totally diabetic, like falling, and like he had to get her to the hospital and stuff, in the emergency room and all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
All because he squirted,
She squirted.
or she squirted rather, on his face.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Does it, Kevin? There's a reason you're over there and we're over here, because we know the bullshit filter.
I'm not
all
a
right?
doctor and I'm not a scientist, but I don't think it's pee.
It's not.
So
Yeah, I don't think so either.
He said basically.
but
not how that
those aren't doctor terms either.
It's basically pee.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
Donald Trump.
Right.
We were talking about how we had a problem with Nick Scarpino's pee schedule.
Right. It's a,
And something's
it's a
wrong with
ridiculous
him,
pee schedule.
and he
There's
should go
definitely
get his
something wrong with
prostate checked.
it. I'll check your prostate for you if you want.
Kevin, can you watch Colin check my prostate? Thanks, Kevin.
I'll gladly check your prostate.
What would be the point of having me watch?
Just to make sure he does it right, because you know how to check prostates.
You've been checking mine a lot lately.
So Colin,
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm like all discombobulated.
Were you guys spent that entire time talking about my bladder?
Yeah,
No,
we
it
don't want.
doesn't
We don't
matter.
want. Yeah, it's this girl squirting. It doesn't matter. Anyways, we don't want to go to a topic without you. Is all.
So people are just curious about what I thought about him, and I'm curious in turn what you guys think about him, because he's a incredibly disruptive figure in a good way, I think, and in a bad way. I think actually in a better way than people give him credit for to the political system, and he's a sign of people, especially in the Republican Party, not liking any of their candidates.
What's his approval rating right now?
His
Last time I looked, it was like he had a ridiculous majority.
Well, his approval rating is something different than what he.
Not approval.
How's he polling?
His poll.
excuse
He's got like I think 35 in New Hampshire out of 17 people. Iowa, I think probably a little less, probably like 30. And I think him and Ben Carson's probably
Wait, sorry,
pretty.
what?
What?
He has 35 out of 17.
35% out of 17 candidates.
Gotcha.
So
That's a big majority.
Yeah,
huge
that makes
majority.
sense. Yes.
And then in Iowa, I think it's a little less, like 28-30 probably, and I think Ben Carson's pretty competitive there. I don't think Trump's going to win in Iowa, because of the nature of the caucuses and it's just more evangelical.
Heads up, that's the first time I've heard of Ben Carson.
Ben Carson is the you saw him speak the other day, the soft-spoken black guy. You remember, and you asked me who he was. We were watching. Okay. Do you not remember this?
I mean, I vaguely remember this but I didn't watch it. You had it on your laptop.
Ben Carson. I was
listening to him.
A world famous neurosurgeon.
Gotcha.
Out of Carnegie Mellon.
He invented the brain.
He was the
Are
first.
you familiar with that, Greg?
I think he was the first
in passing.
I think he was the first surgeon to successfully separate Siamese twins attached at the head.
Really? That guy, he can't be president. He's too smart.
Well, he's very smart. He's way smarter than
He's way
everyone
too
else
smart.
on the stage. But so before I get into it, I just want to say, like, I think that to kind of set to kind of, I like Donald Trump, and I don't mean that as like necessarily a politician. As you guys know, I've been a big fan of Donald Trump for many years because I love
for The Apprentice.
I love The Apprentice and I love Celebrity Apprentice. I think Donald Trump is smart. I think that he's a great showman. I think he's an entertainer. I think that he knows exactly what he's doing. I think he's the smartest man in the room most of the time. I think people that deny that don't really know what they're talking about. I don't think you amass a fortune of $10 billion or more.
No, what about the argument that he only, and I already know the counter move to this, but I'll set you up. I'll tee you up here, but don't come at me. What about the counter argument to when people say, well, he inherited all his money?
He didn't inherit all his money. He inherited some money and he inherited advantages, but he made it stronger. And Trump was not a brand until it was him, right? Trump was not Trump until it was Donald Trump, not his father. So, when you have a skyscraper in the most expensive city in the world, New York City, with your name on it, you've done something right. That said, I think that Donald Trump is he's a symptom of an illness with the Republican Party. He is not, I don't want to say categorically he's not going to win the nomination because I think it's becoming more and more certain that he might win the nomination.
Yeah, which is terrible.
Who are the legitimate contenders? Who's it going to come down to?
Trump, Ben Carson's definitely a legitimate contender, and then you have to assume like Jeb Bush and Rubio and maybe Scott Walker and maybe John Kasich. I can't see it being anyone else. So that's like 6 of 17. So you're talking about like sitting governors, and 3 of them are sitting governors. One of them is a neurosurgeon, one of them is a businessman, and then Jeb Bush is an ex-governor. So
gotcha.
And then Kasich's obviously the governor of Ohio, et cetera and so on. So to me, he's people have been saying it in different ways over and over again about Donald Trump, and it's something it resonates with me as a Republican, which is we don't like our own party and we don't like our own candidates, and we're sick of them. The fact of the matter is we elect Republicans and they don't do anything. They just don't govern. So the major problem here is that unlike the Democratic Party, which is not an amalgamation of many groups, it's really a kind of a groupthink. And I don't mean that as an insult. Like the Democratic Party is very cohesive. They have a set of principles that 90% of them believe in, right? Unless you're like a Reagan Democrat or something like that. That's basically what you are. The Republicans are libertarian, paleo-conservative, Rockefeller conservatives, neoconservatives, evangelicals, and they all have, I always say it's like a Mexican standoff between all of them all the time. Mm-hmm. Like the libertarians hate the fucking evangelicals hate the paleocons hate the neocons, and at some point we put our guns down. We're like, fine, Mitt Romney.
All right, we're all going with Romney.
Yeah, we gotta have someone.
Romney is the choice.
We good?
All right.
And that's the way it goes. And what it's produced over time, what people don't realize is that the Republicans have lost 5 of the last 6 presidential elections by popular vote, and the only popular vote we've won was in 2004. Since Clinton. So 92, 96, 2000, 2004, 2008, and then 2012. So I guess it's actually starting with 96. So 96, et cetera and so on. We lost all of them, except for 1. And there's an existential problem with the party, which is that the party's core platform, I do believe, is an exciting platform and a platform that resonates with a lot of people. And if we focus on that platform of small government and unintrusive government, low tax and stuff, we'll be fine. But then because everyone's always in a Mexican standoff with each other where they're all pointing guns at each other and all hate each other, you end up with candidates that are not appealing. And so you end up with like Bob Dole or John McCain or, I like Mitt Romney, but Mitt Romney was certainly, looked at as that kind of candidate. Mm-hmm. And that eventually the party starts to hate everyone so much that you get Donald Trump. And that's how you arrive in this place.
Well, I don't think you get Donald Trump. I think you open up the door for a Donald Trump to come
in
through
and be like, fuck this.
And show everyone the ridiculous flaws that they have within the party and within the system. I'm with you. I think Donald Trump happens to be a genius. I don't mean a genius financially or economically or he's a business genius, although I'm sure his business acumen is high.
Good words.
But I think he's a genius because if he understands anything, it is that he understands how to use the media to his advantage. And let me give you an example. Every time he says anything, every major and actually every media outlet on the planet has to report it because he's so polarizing. So even if he's saying things that are completely outrageous or flat out wrong, he gets everyone's attention. So as far as Mindshare is concerned, he's a winner in that regard because he's playing the media and all of us like a fucking fiddle, and it's working. And I can't not watch him do this, right? And so there is something to be said for like, what does it say about our population that we're willing to let a candidate like this not only come in, but from his inception, he has been the leader. Like, he has never not polled higher than anyone else. Am I correct?
He's always winning, yeah.
Like, he came in, everyone's like, oh, ha, 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 it's a joke. Like, he's polling higher than everyone. And now he's just torn away. And he's saying some outrageously radical shit, most of which, I mean, I got to disagree with a lot of it. But the one thing that I do really respect and appreciate him for is that he is not backed by any, what's the terminology I'm looking for? Special interest group, right?
No.
So he is beholden to no one.
Right.
And that's why I think a lot of people are dangerous. If you were actually not using that crazy rhetoric to get attention, if you were actually somehow, which I have a feeling that if he's serious about this presidency, that he's going to have to start doing that eventually, which is going to have to take that rhetoric and move it more toward the sane and rational and actually how we're going to get this shit done side of things. But if you were actually able to do that, he would be a scarily awesome candidate. Just because he doesn't have, like, that's the biggest problem our politics in this country faces is that there's too much money involved, and he can actually take that out. Now, I don't think he will, and I don't think even if he were to get by some crazy stroke of like circumstances were to actually be elected president, I'm terrified for how he would use that to his advantage because that's exactly why. I mean,
He's a
guy
business
like
guy.
a guy like Donald Trump doesn't run for president because he truly wants to fix things. A guy like Donald Trump runs for president because he wants to take that billion and make it into a trillion, which is what every president, Republican president's done for a really long time anyway. Well, I shouldn't say every, but at least the Bushes were pretty damn good at stuffing their pockets with money. I just can't. Part of me is like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe we're even entertaining this notion. And the other part of me is like, what's scarier, Trump getting into office or another Bush? Because Jeb will have, I mean, once all the 17 candidates start fading off and it goes down to, well, they're going to run out of money.
Yeah.
Eventually, Trump's lead that he has is going to even out, and it's going to become a real primary. And that's, I mean, I'd love to see what happens with that when they go up against each other. And just watching some of the quotes from his debate, you can't mess with him because the more people that went after him, they dropped.
I got to be honest with you.
They dropped.
My favorite clip, and I'd love to find it. We probably would get in trouble for using it, but my favorite moment of that debate was when Megyn Kelly asked him about all the disparaging thing he said about women or whatever, and she's naming all of these things. Did you see this?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh my! It's like because she's right. Like, he really says awful things about people, whatever.
He was mean to Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, but then he's like, just Rosie O'Donnell, like all these things, and the crowd just goes fucking insane. And I'm like, that was fucking awesome. See, I can't believe that you just said that.
A presidential candidate just called out Rosie O'Donnell.
What was the question? The question was like, do you take one? Do you wish to? You
No,
can take it back?
because she was like, you said this about this woman, this, and he's like, just Rosie O'Donnell. And then just backs away from the microphone and everyone. And it's not true. Like, he's totally lying. He said awful things. I'm not defending what he said.
Yeah.
I want to be
clear about that.
I'm saying that was amazing. No one would ever do that.
I mean, it's
if
a no
they were a
fucks given
politician.
situation. Yeah, he can.
Yeah.
He's kind of playing this character at this point where he can literally just do and say whatever he wants, and then people are going to react like what Nick's saying. But what's crazy to me is like this reminds me when I was way younger and Arnold was our fucking governor. How the fuck did that happen? Like that's
He's
like,
popular.
Great
Like,
recall.
But that's the thing though. It's like he's popular. It's like. I've never been a political guy. I don't know this stuff. But especially when I was in high school when that happened, like I was a freshman in high school, and I remember it happened. I was like, I didn't know the other people. I knew Schwarzenegger, and I'm like, this is nuts though. That this is really a thing. I can't believe this is really a thing. And I hear about Donald Trump, I'm like, I can't believe this is really a thing. But then it's dangerous with this. It's different because he has the money and he has the popularity and he has friends, he has connections, he has all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a
He's got everything he
popularity
needs.
contest,
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God, he could just do this.
Yeah,
because he wants it to happen.
I know, but isn't that kind of everything in life? Isn't that kind of how you get ahead in business and how do you get ahead in, really any field? Like, that's how actors become famous actors, right? They have friends and they work networks.
Yeah.
Like, they network and they figure out how to get up, how to work their way up the totem pole. That, again, let me back what Colin said. I don't disagree. I don't agree rather with a lot of the disparaging remarks that he said. Actually, any of them. I don't think that all the ones that I can remember, I vehemently disagree with. Right, all of his
Rosie
remarks about
O'Donnell's
Mexicans. I've never met
Queen
Rosie
of
O'Donnell,
nice.
so I'm not going to go out on a limb and say she's not nice. Although I can appreciate that she may or may not have a bone to pick with Donald Trump. But the fact that he can say the things is the most fascinating part.
Definitely.
It's the fact that no one is going, oh, like if any other candidate had talked shit about anyone, they would every political correspondent across the nation would be like, oh, this person's out of the race.
Sure.
Because they said something, they actually had an opinion on something that
Yep.
could be quote unquote polarizing. So God for fucking bid, we don't reward them for that. We, in fact, take marks off of the page for that, and we have to kick them out of the race because they actually had an opinion on something. And that's the problem with politics in America, is that you're not allowed to have an opinion about anything. It's all backpedaling. It's all answering without answering. Now, here you've got a guy that's answering actually pointed. There are questions that are being asked, and he's pointedly answering them.
Yeah.
The wrong way, unfortunately, but he's having a fucking opinion.
answering him. Yeah, that's the thing that is so exciting about him, right? In terms of just somebody who's watching from the sidelines to see how it all shakes out, is like, it's going to be cool if somebody who can say whatever the fuck they want actually has a shot at this. And it isn't just fucking lip service to the, well, I got to play to the Christian right and I got to do this. And I don't even, Mitt Romney's this great governor or whatever. And then when he gets on the national stage, he has to be all like, wow, God and abortion. And he's like, ah, dude, like you're cooler back there. Why can't you just be that guy?
By the way, I found the clip.
Do you find the clip?
It's just 30 seconds here.
Things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only
has
Rosie
several-
O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
Damn.
When that happened,
That's insane. That he could just fucking do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and that was the thing I was saying. I was like, that's wrong. Like, I don't believe it's the same thing I say about Democrats when they go after the Koch brothers. I'm like, these are private citizens, and I don't really think that we should be going after people that are not in public life, really. And so my first instinct was like, yikes. Like, but I was sitting there watching with Cheryl, and I started laughing. I'm like, that might be the craziest thing I've ever seen in a primary in my entire life. And I've watched every debate since literally every one of them probably since 1992. So. Like since I was like 8 or 9.
Interesting for
sure.
sure.
Yeah. So like I was like, that is just as someone who studied political science, I'm like, this is unbelievable. And I remember after that first debate, because there's only been one so far, I was watching the pundits and I agreed with them, and they were like, I'm like, Donald Trump's done. He didn't answer any questions. He didn't say anything. He's going after people, whatever. And he went up 10 points. And I was like, everything about him doesn't make sense from a political science perspective, which is why it's so exciting for someone who studied it, where it's like these things are predictable. Polling and poll testing and all this kind of stuff. People give polls shit sometimes, and sometimes polls are wrong. Polls are very wrong in the midterm, for instance, because their sample balance is off. But polls are real. They can predict a lot, and they do predict almost everything that happens, which is detrimental to our republic in the sense that people feel like they don't need to go out and vote. But I talked to you guys about this too. The one thing that's intriguing to me about him, and this is something I do believe. I was telling you guys something about a political science term called the Bradley effect. And the Bradley effect is something that happened in the early 80s in LA when a black man was running for mayor. And he was winning in the polls. He was winning in every poll. And then he was going against a white guy. And the white guy ended up winning. And everyone's like, what happened with the polling? And they're like, well, it's the Bradley effect. They named it the Bradley effect. They're like, people are afraid to say that they're not going to vote for a black person because they don't want to look like they're racist. That was the entire idea of the Bradley effect or whatever. And what I think what's happening here is clearly not the Bradley effect, but it's something similar, and it's reversed. I think Donald Trump has more support than the polls show. And I think that people are afraid to admit it. Like when a pollster calls them, or they're afraid to admit it to their friend. I think this is what the statistics show with him, which I think is fascinating. And this was when I saw this, I was like, this is fucking insane. He's winning with libertarians, evangelicals, paleoconservatives, neoconservatives. He's winning with men. He's winning with women. He's winning with more moderate Republicans. He's winning with all age groups. He's winning with everyone in the Republican Party. And you never, ever, ever see that. For instance, even in the general election, the only thing that Romney won was white men. That's what he won.
So when they do these things to see where we're polling and all that stuff, who are they talking to? Are they talking to people that are active in politics, or is it just like surveys for random motherfuckers?
They garner your number. So there's algorithms that they use, and they'll garner numbers. Polling was questioned for a while because it used to be landlines, and now they're calling, so it would skew older and probably more conservative. But they're using cell phones, and basically they get your number based on if you donated to a candidate or whatever, and then you have to confirm that. There's a lot of trust put into the polling, but they confirm that you are a registered Republican. Like, for instance, any numbers about Donald Trump that have nothing to do with Republicans are useless because no one's going to be voting for him but registered Republicans in the primaries, unless you're in an open primary state. So there's a science behind it, and then based on how accurate they think the numbers are, there's a margin of error, which is usually 3.5 points. So 7 points in terms of a swing. And the polling is typically right. I mean, Nate Silver, for instance, who's a master of polling, predicted basically every state in 2012. So the polling means something, and I actually think that the crazy thing and the interesting thing to me, as someone who sits on the sideline and who's someone who I don't think that I don't want to necessarily commit. I don't have my guy yet. My hope is that Mitt Romney gets in. I mean, I'm just being totally straight up and honest with you guys. Like,
You think
I
he
want,
actually have a chance?
people are apparently like trying to get him in, like because they think that this whole field just sucks, and that they just need someone that we know can do it. Mitt Romney, I've said it before, and I know it's a joke to a lot of people. I think Mitt Romney got robbed in 2012. I think he should have been president, and I think the media was totally skewed against him. I think he was totally ready for the job, and I think people realize that now. And as people like Greg say, after the dust settled and you see his documentary and you just see him, or whatever, you're like, this guy was kind of character assassinated, and everyone knows it.
What was that based on? I don't remember why he. What was the character flaw? Other than he was Mormon.
He had
He's
that.
rich.
There was that, and then he had the speech that they had like the shaky cam footage from a table.
When he talked about how 53% of Americans pay for everything, and the 47% of Americans they'll always vote Democrat because they get free shit. Basically, was his argument. Ineloquently put, I thought. Wasn't supposed to be recorded, but that's the environment you live in today or whatever. So I just think the media just hard. I mean, my personal opinion, I know some people disagree, is just I think the media was really hard on Mitt Romney. I think that Mitt Romney is a good man. I don't think Barack Obama is a bad man. I think Barack Obama is a good man too. I think that Mitt Romney roughed the shit out of Barack Obama in the first debate, and it woke everyone up. I think that Mitt Romney destroyed Obama in that first debate, and everyone knows it, and it caused a lot of fear, and so then they really started to buckle down and really go at him.
It's interesting though that and this is just for you, obviously. The two candidates that you gravitate toward most are both like hardcore business persons. Obviously, Donald Trump and Mitt Romney being like very, very successful in the private sector. Is that something that you feel like we need? Is that something that like just someone? I mean, because that was always kind of the allure for me with Mitt Romney of like when the man talks about like because that was always something they kind of went after him for. They're like, oh, you don't come from politics, you don't really have the background for this, you don't know what it's like to lead, to be a governor of a state or to be a senator
of Massachusetts
or whatever. What was it then? Or I guess they kind of came after him because he didn't have the experience that everyone else had.
He didn't.
But he was like, yeah, but I've built corporations in a multi-billion-dollar corporation, so I kind of know what it is to lead and to have kind of a bottom line result, which is not something that necessarily people in Washington adhere to. Do you gravitate toward that? Is that something you think that we would need?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people disagree with it. I think that the republic should be run like a business. I think that that's like clear as day. I don't understand why anyone would be against that. If the government's taking your money, then it's certainly be run by someone who understands it.
We should be held accountable for what it's used for.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think so. Everyone's like, it's not a business. The government's not a business, and I'm like, yeah, it is. It's a fucking massive business. It employs like 1/6 of the entire country. So yeah, and it employs way too many people, and it's just this massive fucking apparatus, Not 1/6. I mean, the number's lower than that. 1/6 is actually the amount that healthcare, I think, takes up of the economy. But I'm attracted to people that are outsiders. That Carly Fiorina, who's also running for president, she's the old HP CEO, said something really prescient, I thought, which was, why does everyone talk about experience about how long you've been running for office? What the fuck does that even mean? It's like if you don't have experience.
I'd vote for her if she said that in the middle of a thing. What the fuck does that even mean?
Well, she's getting hammered because she was just a CEO and stuff, and it's like just a CEO, Jeb Bush was the governor of Florida. That's great. That's valuable experience. But why is his experience more valuable than mine? Because he's in the government. The only thing that tells you about anyone is that you can't probably trust them, Right. And so I think that, I'm fascinated by Donald Trump just watching him. He's not my guy in the primary. I don't think he's going to get through, but we'll see what happens. I've been saying that for months, and he's just becoming more popular.
Do you think it'll be of his own volition that he doesn't go through? Do you think he'll just be like, okay, the joke's over, or I'm just leaving?
I think he's dead fucking serious,
Really?
And I don't think it's a joke at all. And the unfortunate thing about him is that he brings up topics that I think need to be talked about, but he doesn't know how to talk about them. And this is one of the things I talked about with Greg, is that when you have an ego the size of his, part of running for president is knowing that you have to surround yourself with people smarter than you. That's what good candidates do. People that understand the system and understand the mechanics of how to run a campaign. It's complicated, and there are really, really talented people that do it. That are like that wait every 4 years and they get in. A guy like Karl Rove, for instance. A lot of people give Karl Rove shit, but Karl Rove is like a brilliant architect of 2 presidential campaigns. Like he knows what he's doing, And Donald Trump has an apparatus, but he doesn't listen to anything anyone says. You know, like he was campaigning in Alabama, and I'm like, why are you in Alabama? Like, why are you in Alabama? You need to stay in New Hampshire. You know, like if I was, but like no one's listening. Like you just won't listen to anyone. And when he brings up topics, he doesn't know how to saliently talk about them. So like, yeah, illegal immigration is a massive problem in this country, and most Americans agree. This is not a Republican or Democratic issue. Like we have an influx of illegal immigrants in this country. We have a shortage of jobs. We have a porous border. These are totally valuable things that we should be talking about. But you can't talk about them in an incendiary way and say you're going to deport everyone. You know?
Yeah.
Like you can't do it. So he brings up these topics that should be talked about, but he doesn't know how to talk about them. And he doesn't know how to shut up. And that's going to be a big problem for him. But so far, it hasn't been a big problem.
Isn't that the thing everyone likes about him, though? Isn't that the fact that, like, when everyone else answers the question to immigration, they really don't answer it? Like, what did I see? It wasn't immigration. It was, maybe it wasn't an immigration issue. I forget which candidate said it, but they said that they wouldn't be opposed to using the FBI or like the National Guard to enforce certain things. Oh, fuck, I'm slaughtering it. Never mind. Disregard that. But I think that people respond very well to that because they're not used to hearing someone actually say, oh, I would absolutely put up a wall, and it would be a really big wall, and I would have my own corporation build that wall, which he said. He was like, oh, he even named the material and the actual like faux thing he would make the wall out of. Like he was like, oh, they have these walls that are like, they're pre-built. You have them shipped in. It's super easy. We'll put them in there. And he's like, and I'm not talking about a little wall that someone can hop over. I'm talking about a 20-foot cement wall that are prefab that you bring in and you put down. Like it's crazy to hear someone that might be president actually be like, here are the logistics behind that. Now, what he does really need to start doing is that on every other topic, when someone asks him about it, he does a lot of that sidestepping where he doesn't finish his thought. Have you noticed that?
Let's take a helicopter ride.
Well, he'll just start talking, and then he goes off tangent, and then tangent, and then tangent,
Yeah,
and you're like,
doesn't
"What
answer
the
questions.
hell are you
But
talking
this is
about?"
the thing,
dude?
and this is what we've realized. I think like more like policy wonks have realized, like as they've watched him, which is it doesn't matter. He's the candidate of the time. It doesn't matter what he says. Like he went on Hugh Hewitt's show. Hugh Hewitt's like a pretty popular. I don't really like him very much, but a popular conservative radio host, and asked him a bunch of foreign policy questions. He could not answer. Like he couldn't answer them. Some of them were complicated. Some of them I don't even know. I really know what the fuck he was talking about. But not that I don't really get into. I don't care much about foreign policy, but anymore. But after that, Trump was like, he asked me gotcha questions. Fuck him, you know, like, and his polling just went up. Like it's just like I'm like what is it's as someone who that's why I want to talk about it and to bring it up because I'm also curious what our fans think of him. I'm somewhat neutral on him. I
Sure.
guess is like where I kind of fall on it. Where I'm like he's fun to watch. I like that he's setting the narrative. He has all of this money, but what people are ignoring is he hasn't spent any of it. He doesn't need to. Like people are like dying to like have him on their shows. He just does wherever he goes to Alabama. Who the fuck goes to Alabama? I don't mean any disrespect to Alabama, but you go to New Hampshire, you go Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Florida, Nevada. That's the order. If you're not in those states almost exclusively, you're fucking not doing it right.
Sure,
but he doesn't care.
He doesn't. He maybe I mean that's the thing, or maybe there's a method to his madness, right? And that's something that we just don't know. Like I don't believe that you ever really understand 100% the strategy behind like that's happening in that man's head. I think he's got a strategy. I don't know what it is, and maybe it doesn't adhere to the normal stratagems of that have preceded it, but he has something that he knows that we don't, and he's going to use it to his advantage. But to what end is my question. It's like I still don't buy that the man wants to necessarily be president. I would not surprise me at all if like 2 or 3 months from now he dropped out of the election and went back to NBC and started a show that was like the best show on the fucking planet, and this whole thing was just to promote that show. You know, that's the kind of
He's
crazy.
the Kojima of politics.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you know,
he's an interesting dude. I mean, I'm fascinated by him because it's like he's not the first person to be like a game change or like someone that shakes up a race, but it happens really only like once in a generation to have someone like this, and in a time where matchups really matter because a new poll shows Trump beating all of the Democrats, which is even crazier. I'm like, this is insane. Like I'm like I can't believe that this is happening, but in a time where Hillary Clinton's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, she's in a lot of trouble.
And it's becoming worse and worse for her every day. Bernie Sanders is beating her in Iowa now. And Biden, who's not even fucking running, is beating her in Iowa. So like there's like just major problems for her. It's all about matchups. And in a time where the Republicans are licking their chops hoping Bernie Sanders gets elected, which is what we all hope and wish because there's a lot of delusion about him.
Steamroll over him, you think?
Bernie Sanders is a very good man, very consistent man. And has been consistent for 40 years about what he says. My personal take on Bernie Sanders is he has absolutely no prayer in the general election. And
Why
a
is-
lot, and a
why
lot of
is
people,
that?
because he's a socialist. And there's nothing wrong if you want to be a socialist or whatever, but we've never elected anyone even remotely like him before, you know? And it's easy to go around saying everything you want to say when no one's challenging what you're saying.
Sure.
I want free education for free college education. I want a $15 minimum wage. I want 90% tax on the rich. I want and everyone's just and everyone's be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
You know, like that's not what we do here. But he's an interesting man. I think that he's the easiest to beat, but that's my opinion. A lot of people would disagree with that, and that's fine. We'll see how that all shakes out. I could be totally wrong. If we elect someone like Bernie Sanders, this country is totally unpredictable in every respect, which is an exciting way to be.
But that was my thing, though. Like when Trump entered the race, I got excited because I was like, cool, it's going to be hilarious watching him or him respond to other people, right? Other candidates, rather. And I was like, oh, this is going to be, the debate's going to be hilarious because it's going to be Donald Trump doing crazy stuff if he makes it that far. And then someone's going to say something and he's going to basically be calling other candidates out on their bullshit. That's not what's happening, though. Somehow that shifted, and now everyone's trying to take him apart. And every time they take a shot at him, they go down and he goes up.
I mean, that's what
It's
happens. It's
crazy.
like wrestling, you know? The bad guy. People like the bad guy.
But is he the bad guy? That's the thing. It's like,
But that's the thing. The bad guy's in wrestling, the bad guy, until everyone loves him, and then he becomes the good guy because he is the bad guy everyone loves.
Maybe.
You know?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's an interesting
Dark
cat, man.
Knight shit.
I'm fascinated to watch this all. I think this is a very dynamic and fluid election. I think that, we have some interesting people on the left with Bernie Sanders. Who knows if Elizabeth Warren ends up getting involved? There's a lot of people trying to draft her into it. Biden looks like he is going to get in. Because Hillary Clinton's wounded. And so I do believe Hillary Clinton's on the downward spiral now. Because
You think so?
Yeah.
They're really
she's
trying to
not gonna be
downplay
able-
those
she-
emails, though. They're like, wasn't the last count like only like out of all of them? What was the deal with it? They
one I saw was that
declassified some of them, right? But then like half of them were quote unquote classified, so they can't really share them anyway. With
Yeah, and that's all that matters.
Right.
They found more classified emails. The big thing is that the person who set up her server pled the fifth. When I saw that, I was like, that's fucking incredible. I'm like, 'cause
Really?
you don't-
I didn't see that.
Because you don't plead the fifth. You can't just plead the fifth because you don't want to testify. You plead the fifth if you're going to incriminate yourself.
Yeah.
That's the rule. You don't just say like, I don't want to talk. It's like you're not allowed to talk if you are going to be
Well,
incriminated.
that's what the fifth is, right?
Yeah, exactly. So because a lot
You're
of
not
people
allowed to
misinterpret that. So
incriminate
like,
yourself.
oh, he doesn't have to talk, and I'm like, no, he has
No.
to talk unless he's going to incriminate himself.
Right.
So that is a when I saw that, I was like, oh shit. So I think that she's unraveling, and even if she gets away with it, no one trusts her.
But
her
do you
polling
think,
is
do you
so
think
bad.
that because Trump is able to say all the shit that he is saying and whatever, that's going to kind of make this different and allow other people to get away with stuff as well?
No, I think it's the opposite effect that's happening. I think it's the more crazy shit that he says, the more people are not willing to put up with. And I'm conflicted on Clinton because I think she does it. I think she gets a lot more scrutiny than she ought to because she is a woman, and I don't want to open up that can of worms. But I feel like we let a lot of guys slide with shit like this, and I feel like she's. I don't know.
But understand that General Petraeus did the same exact thing and was removed.
That is true.
From
That
the
is true.
CIA. So here's the thing. We'll close out because I know we're going along. Here's the thing about Donald Trump. He's a legitimate candidate. Now, whether or not you agree with him or disagree with him remains to be seen. Whether or not he craters because he said something stupid remains to be seen. But as someone who studied politics and studied history, not to the degree that a lot of these wonks have, but to a degree where I understand it very well, I've never seen anything like this. And what
He's looking for the definition of, was it wonk?
Wonk, yeah.
a policy wonk in politics is someone who. So there are different kinds of politicians. A wonk. Paul Ryan was a wonk. Romney's running mate. It's
He
a
had really
guy.
good abs, too.
It's a guy that crafts and understands policy.
Got it.
So he's like the guy that like understands the minutia of a bill, or like wonks are just people that are nerdy about the little things in politics. So they're not just on the stump talking. Like Trump's the antithesis of a wonk, for instance. Right, but like Romney wanted to get Ryan on the ticket to give him validity with the people like insiders that and Paul Ryan writes a lot of legislation, so that's just basically it. That's about as good as I can
Boiled
explain
it
without
down.
Is
being
it
here.
in any way, shape, or form related to Willy Wonka and the
No,
Chocolate Factory?
not related to that at all.
He'd get my vote.
Asking that, he would.
But
I'd
yeah,
vote
I think Trump's an interesting dude. I think that he's worth keeping an eye on. I think someone like Bernie Sanders is interesting too, because the one thing you can't ignore with Bernie Sanders, even though I think he's easily beatable in my own mind, is that this whole election's been fucking topsy-turvy and weird, and he is saying things that people want to hear, like that the deck is stacked against them and that the rich don't care about them, they don't pay their fair share and all that kind of stuff. Here's the interesting thing about that, is if it's Trump and Sanders, is Trump is saying the same thing. And that's one of the things I'm saying is Trump is like, I want to raise taxes on the rich. I want to raise taxes on Wall Street. I want to raise taxes on, like, he's talking about raising taxes and he's still winning. Like, that is like usually like what took down Bush 1? No
Read
new
my
taxes,
lips.
right? Read my lips, no new taxes. And then he raised taxes. And that was the end of Bush. You know what I mean? Because we don't take kindly to raising taxes on anyone in the Republican Party. It's just not the way we are. But Bush is walking around, or Trump's walking around being like, I'll raise taxes.
I'm gonna do it.
And like, so he's almost stealing some of their shit where it's like, in the general election, he might be a pretty interesting character, and he puts some pretty interesting states into play.
He's definitely an interesting character.
Do we feel like the reason a lot of more people trust him on fiscal issues is just because he is he is known for being the business person of the United States? Like, he is the face of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and a lot of people attack him because he's had some bankruptcies and stuff. I didn't like the way he dealt with that question where he was like, so people were asking like, you've declared bankruptcy 4 times, like your business has declared bankruptcy 4 times, and I was like, oh, this is such a slam dunk answer, and what I was expecting him to say was like, I own hundreds of businesses, so 4 of them declared bankruptcy. My success rate is like 98%.
Right.
What's your success rate? You know, something like very Trump-like.
Yeah.
But instead, he was basically being like, I declared bankruptcy because I can make more money out of it, and I was using the system. And I was like, that's an interesting answer. That's an interesting answer.
way to answer
Not
that
the way I
question.
would have went down the road. Again, he needs to listen to people that know what they're doing because he doesn't know how to
Yeah,
run a
but
campaign.
isn't there a-
Imagine how effective he could be if he had people that he could. If he had his own Karl
But see,
Rove.
therein lies the problem.
David Axelrod.
Therein lies the issue is because to do that would take away that transparency, which I believe people are vibing with. People are responding to that full transparency. He basically was like, I'm gaming the system. I'm doing something that if everyone else did, our economy would collapse. But I am doing it. I am taking advantage of that because it is smart business that I'm sharing this with you guys. I'm being honest. If you start layering yourself behind those layers of the Karl Roves or your sort of political handlers, don't you take away a little bit of that magic?
You do, but you don't have to make them like a public figure either. Like I can tell when he walks around that he's not listening to anyone.
I don't
Like,
think he has anyone. I think his opponents backstage have like 40 handlers, and then it's at the Trump table, and it's like, you know, a fucking Fanta and maybe a line of cocaine, and he's just like, "Let's go after
let's
this."
go.
You know,
Got it, bros.
I'm not accusing Donald Trump.
Yeah,
of
so
using
he's
cocaine. He will sue me. Please don't.
He's
don't-
an interesting
don't do that.
character, and I think people are not taking him seriously at their own risk. I guess I'll leave it there. Like, I think that he's in the stay. I think he's going to win some states, and I think that in the primary, and we'll see what happens when we get to Super Tuesday and stuff if he's still in, because Super Tuesday is really going to be a test of money and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, like, I find him interesting as someone who just likes politics, who doesn't really agree with much of what he says in terms of like I don't like how he went after John McCain. I don't like all these kinds of things. I'm a little concerned he doesn't seem to know a lot. I like how he answers a lot in terms of like, you know, we're just here having a good time. He says that a lot.
He's definitely the
And I'm
candidate
like,
everyone
this
wants
is
to have a
so
beer with.
awesome. I'm like, they just asked you a fucking foreign policy question and you're talking about how much of a good time you're having? What the fuck are you talking about? And then his polling number go up 5 points. So it's totally unpredictable. And again, I'm telling you, he has support with independents. He has broad support across the entire spectrum of the Republican Party. And that is not something I've ever seen. And I've never seen it. And I don't know if we're ever going to see that again, because I think the Republican Party is fucking crumbling in on itself like a dying star anyway. So this might be one of the last times we ever see the Republican Party. And it's going to be, so he might be like the Nero of like just fiddling as like Washington burns or as the Republican Party burns, or he might be the smartest man in the room. And at this point, I fucking don't know. It's fascinating.
I'm inclined to vote for him just to see if he can turn the White House into Dan Bilzerian's Instagram pages, where it's just like you just like, remember they talked about the candidate that you'd most want to have a beer with, and it was like, that's why Bush, one of the main reasons why people liked Bush, because they were like, he's just the kind of guy you want to have.
He's a normal dude.
He's a normal guy. You want to go have a beer with him or whatever. And then later Obama tried to have beers with people, and you're like, it's not working. Trump's the kind of guy you want to party in Vegas with. He's the kind of guy that's like, because he owns a fucking hotel in Vegas, right? Like this, people just want to see what happens. And it's crazy. Sorry, Greg. You've been trying to wrap up for the last 15 minutes.
I haven't. I'm just listening to you finish.
I can tell because your eyes go sleepy. You get sleepy eyes.
Like, I just squint at you?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you are.
I mean, you always miss the natural endpoint. That's the funny thing about you.
Well,
I don't know if you
Colin,
ever go watch your performance. Colin always puts a button on it, and then you got one more thing.
I like to do that.
This topic was brought to you by Squarespace. Nick, we use Squarespace.
We do use Squarespace.
You found it. You used it. It came to you like Cal on a little rocket ship.
I mean, yes, that's exactly how it happened. When I was using it, I was like, this is very, very close to the original Richard Donner Superman.
Squarespace provides simple, powerful, and beautiful websites that look professionally designed, regardless of skill level. No coding required. Not only does Squarespace provide you with intuitive and easy-to-use tools to create your website with, Squarespace also has state-of-the-art technology powering your site to ensure security and stability. And you can trust in Squarespace for your website because millions of other people do too. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure you use the offer code KINDOFFUNNY to get 10% off your first purchase and to show your support for us. Kind of funny. We, of course, thank you, Squarespace, for taking care of us. Squarespace. Build it beautiful. Oh, you knew it. You did.
Oh, I know it.
You're good. You're really good.
Build it beautiful.
Build it beautiful. Build it, you beautiful, beautiful people.
Put a comma in there, and the whole meaning of the sentence is changed.
I like it. I like it better with the comment that Squarespace is just calling everybody beautiful. And I like to think you are, Squarespace. So thank you.
That's Donald Trump's thing as well. Build it beautiful.
The Squarespace
And then,
like,
another,
"Damn
and
it."
then another skyscraper goes up.